Where do your favorite video games come from? At first, you might think that all the major releases are developed in Japan, America and Canada, and you would not be half wrong, since these countries do host big names. Yet, as you can probably guess by my accent, I am Italian, and thus European. When I started reviewing all games that I've played on Steam, I realized that a good chunk of my library is composed of games developed in the old world, somewhere between a third to half of my library. From big studios such as Ubisoft and CD Projekt Red, to small indie located across the continent, many European games I've played, so why not share some suggestions with you? By European is quite a trend this year. In this video, I will mention various indie games developed in these 20 countries you see on screen, most within the European Union, but not only. I did my best to cover the continent as much as possible, but I will of course only address games I've played, so sorry Belgium. This list of games is of course highly personal, and I decided to cover only small productions, that means either indie or AA projects, to avoid repeating the big names you already know, like Poland's The Witcher and the UK's GTA, over and over in yet another video. But that's enough premises for this Euro tour. Roll the intro. Seems only but intuitive to start off these continental breakfasts from my home country of Italy, placed right at the center of the Mediterranean Sea. If you're even vaguely aware of who I am, you might be aware I did multiple videos reviewing Italian indie games, as in many, so picking a few is a challenge by itself. Assetto Corsa is definitely the most known, and for good reasons, since it is a very accurate racing simulator that allows all sorts of mods. However, if I were to recommend 3 games that I truly adore developed in Bella Italia, I would suggest Rivertale Stronger Together, Easy Red 2 and Super Kinemagic Zero. The former is a co-op platformer, a colorful adventure that despite some bugs I did have a blast playing. Easy Red 2 is an old-school multiplayer FPS that not only is well crafted but also receives constant updates and new content. And at last, Super Kinemagic Zero is an action RPG more complex than it looks like, drawn with the art style of the Italian YouTuber CEO. I would talk more about each game, but I made videos for them all. Moving westwards, we reach Spain, a nation that is ever so more present in the gaming scene. Aragami and Darkest Time 3D are titles I did enjoy that deserve to be mentioned in this video. One a stealth game with unique mechanics, and the other a boomer shooter straight up for free on Steam. The top side of the podium, however, has to go to Greece, a game that won myriad of awards back in 2018. The reason why this was the Indie Game of the Year 8 years ago is one: Greece is spectacular, with capital S. The art behind this project is unreal, it goes beyond the simple it looks pretty. The story tells everything without speaking a word, a short but unforgettable tale. I should probably catch up with Nomada Studios' second famous game Neva, because that also got a lot of praise. Nearby Portugal, as far as I'm aware, is very absent in the gaming scene, but if there's one thing the Portuguese are known for, it's navigation, and Kurofone Age of Discovery does not disappoint. A free-to-play demo project available on Steam, it quite intrigued me. I can see it, with the right direction, being developed into a full game in the future, so keep an eye on it. Between Iberia and Italia, we found France, home to a big, if not the biggest gaming industry within the European Union. If anything, the country is so filled with big studios such as Ubisoft, Arcane and Sunful Interactive that I struggle to find French indie games in my library. I will have to go with that one other game, a small hour-long co-op adventure playable entirely for free on Steam. This is also a graduation project from some students, but it is honestly a solid indie game, one that you can play right now. My good friend Albi would also push me to mention A Plague Tale, a famous AA production from Bordeaux, but let us say I did not enjoy that title as much as the rest. Crossing the channel, we reach the English shores. England is also a juggernaut when it comes to video games, there are so many I could list. My favorite British indie game, also the protagonist of another review of mine, is of course the Stanley Parable. This game is the beauty of absurdity, as I titled that older review of mine. No narrative adventure has struck a chord like this one, and back in 2013, this trend was my entry to the amazing world that is indie gaming. Honorable mention has to go to 80 Days. As you can intuitively guess, this game is based on Jules Verne's novel Around the World in 80 Days, but with a new steampunk twist. It is the player who decides how to tackle the journey. This narrative adventure is truly something else, one that hooked me for so many runs. Still within the United Kingdom, we move to Scotland, where I believe Viewfinder is the only indie game I've played that was developed near the Highlands. This game deserves all the praise it got, since it is a genius puzzle game that uses perspective and imagination as a main game mechanic. I'm a great fan of this usage of creativity within gaming experiences, and Viewfinder did not disappoint. Navigating the North Sea, we land on the island of Ireland, not home to a great quantity of games, but to one that I've played, The Dark Side Detective. Cool modern point-and-click adventure, with funny dialogues and charming pixelated art. Not usually what I would play, but I gave it a shot recently and it was not half bad. It is quite memorable for its humor. Moving back to the continent, the Netherlands knows how to develop games, though my list of Dutch-played games is not as extensive as it should. For my catalog, I can definitely recommend the Great War Saga of multiplayer games, that is Verdun, Tannenberg, Isonzo and the very recently released Gallipoli. I played the first two and they were quite fun to play. Frenetic but strategic, game that appeals to those who enjoy this type of multiplayer experiences. Germany used to be more present in the gaming scene, but this is not to say that there aren't current German developers crafting wonderful experiences. From the sequel remake to the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe we discovered before, I also appreciated playing Dorf Romantik and Dr. Langeskov. The former is a relaxing strategy puzzle game where the player has to build a functional countryside village using tiles. Very creative idea that suits both short as well as long game sessions, to turn off your mind while keeping you somewhat challenged. Dr. Langeskov, the Tiger and the Terribly Crossed Emerald meanwhile is yet another free game on Steam. It lasts about half an hour and it gives that Stanley Parable vibes. I've been speedrunning this title long ago, no regrets. Denmark follows suit with a healthy library of indie games for us all to enjoy. The pair of games that is limbo inside might not appeal to everybody, but I promise you they are both solid light horror experiences that define the indie game panorama. War of Rights might suit those who enjoy historically accurate war games, like reenactments, just like I did during the years of the pandemic, but my favorite Danish game has to be A Hat in Time. Super Mario clone games are many, but few can actually match and compete with the iconic Plumber. A Hat in Time is one of these games. Charming 3D platformer that has an excellent game design, one level more creative than the next. I really love playing A Hat in Time. The game just feels right, something extremely challenging for platformers. From Denmark to Sweden, we now encounter the second colossus in gaming, home to yet another great quantity of renowned studios. The Swedish indie scene is not poor either, though again I have a slight problem of needing to dig deeper. Goat Simulator was definitely the picture of indie games for a while, though I think it's a bit overrated. I still did enjoy its craziness and I would still recommend it, but I would like to move your attention to Toem. Game addressed in the black and white gaming video, Toem is, well, monochromatic in style, yet exactly for that reason really charming. The adventure puzzle game is cozy, cute, and pleasant experience from start to finish. It might not be everybody's cup of tea, but it is mine, and I'm more than happy to share this hidden gem with you halfway through this list. Teleporting back to Southern Europe, despite its small population, Croatia is home to various AA productions I will 100% recommend. Escape Room and the Series Sun franchise are games I've played that I give a thumbs up to, but Croatian's magnus opus deserves a spotlight today, Her Majesty the Talos Principle. The puzzle game resembles Portal, another favorite game of mine, but the game explores a more philosophical route, one where the divine and the rational collide in a war of thought. The enigmas themselves are also very well made, and the aesthetics are top notch even to this day. I should probably play the sequel and the recently announced third entry. Do you remember that famous browser game from 10 years ago called Online Reader? While making this video I found out that the game was made by one man from Slovenia. Not exactly indie of the year when it comes to gameplay, but hey, I can see some people enjoy making some wacky courses in this touch game, so it is more than fair it gets a small mention today. Slovenia is not to be confused with Slovakia, creators of the free indie game HRDina. A bit of an absurd experience, one that entertained me more than I anticipated. The game reminded me of Rest for the Sega Dreamcast. The music, the colors, the absurdity of it all, it just works. It is an hour of free entertainment just available on Steam. There's a lot of free games on today's list, you have no excuses. The nearby Austria also might only have one appearance in my gaming journey, but Bridge Constructor 2 became quite popular on YouTube, and Bridge Constructor Portal is an entry I'm quite fond of. A solid game made of an engineer like myself, with levels introducing new mechanics, new challenges, and of course, new chaos. Look, I know that Kingdom Come Deliverance and its sequel are the most famous games from Czechia, but they are still stuck on my backlog. One famous game however that I did play, and quite a lot if I may add, is Euro Truck Simulator 2. The best fit for a list based on Europe, ES2 is the most relaxing experience I have ever had in gaming, and to this day I keep on playing it from time to time. Driving across Europe is cozier than it looks. Nearby Poland has a pedigree when it comes to gaming like few others, with hits like The Witcher 3 and Kolosar's Gaslinger, AAA productions that should be bought without second thought. For its indie scene, I must bring your attention to Superhot, a game that brings ingenuity and minimalism to a whole new level. Like many others, I have a hard time even describing how this game is played. It's basically a slow-motion action game where time stops with the player, a mechanic that allows all sorts of fighting scenes. Superhot and its sequel Mind Control Delete are games to be experienced at least once, especially in VR. Am I cheating if I include the first Metro for Ukraine's entry? Since it is the sole game from Kiev I've played, I will let it slide. This is my list after all. The first Metro hits differently than similar single-player FPS. The plot is dark, the location's darker, the enemies unforgiving, and yet there is always something that keeps pushing the player forwards. Probably I should also play the rest of the game series. The remaining two countries for today are at the border of Europe and are considered gateways to Asia. We're of course talking about Turkey and Russia, two nations that have each developed an indie game I've played and enjoyed, that I will use to conclude this long list. Statecraft Corrupt Democracy was a recent protagonist of a short video of mine released last week. It is a political simulator set in a fictional country during the Cold War. The gameplay is intriguing and there are various campaigns to complete. This is perhaps the most niche game mentioned so far, but if you do enjoy that Paper Please vibe, you might want to check this one out. From Russia, I've played Flycorp, developed by Kishmin Games. The game is similar to Mini Metro, an airline manager where the player needs to make the right adjustments in order to succeed economically. For someone like me, this game structure is very addictive, with an always increased level of challenge. I'm happy it got to be mentioned as the final game for today. So, there you have them, many indie games developed within the European Union, as well as other European countries. It is inevitable that I've missed various games developed in the countries that I've listed, let alone the one not present in my list at all. That is why I would be more than happy to hear your picks, especially the more obscure and cool ones. Europe is not behind when it comes to gaming, as the average player may assume. It is simply harder to visualize the panorama since the continent is made of so many different unique countries. I'm excited to expand my catalog in the future, and who knows, I might make a follow-up list. If you made it this far, I wanted to thank you one too many European times for watching today's video. It has been a while since I've made this sort of video. There are always so many games I want to talk about, yet so little time to actually address them all. What are your favorite indie games developed in the continent? I wish you all a wonderful day. And until next time, arrivederci.